Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm really excited to walk you through how I created this complete 2D animation sequence entirely within Blender. We're going to break down the entire process from start to finish. If you look at the interface right now, you'll see how I have my workspace organized. For 2D animation in Blender, utilizing the grease pencil toolset is incredibly powerful, but it requires a slightly different layout than your traditional 3D modeling workflow. As you can see on my screen, I prefer keeping my main viewport front and center so I can see exactly what the final framing looks like. On the bottom, I have my timeline and dope sheet readily accessible. This is crucial because when you're managing multiple layers, like the environment, the character, and the effects, you need to be able to precisely time your keyframes without constantly resizing windows. Before we dive into the drawing and animation, let's talk setup. If you are a complete beginner, the easiest way to start a project like this is by going to File greater than New, greater than 2D Animation. This automatically optimizes your canvas, switches your camera to an orthographic view, and sets up your layers so you can start sketching immediately without worrying about 3D space just yet. Now, let's talk about building the stage for our animation. I wanted to create a dramatic, atmospheric setting, so I decided on a high cliffside looking out over a deep valley with mountains in the background. If you look at how this scene is constructed, it's actually built using simple layer separation to create depth. Let's look at the main cliff on the right side of the screen, where our character will stand. I used a solid outline with a subtle gradient fill to give the rock face a solid, heavy, geometric feel. Notice the cracks and lines along the edge. These small details are what help the viewer understand the scale of the environment. In the background, I sketched out distant mountain ranges. To make them look far away, I used a technique called atmospheric perspective. Instead of making them dark or highly detailed, I gave them a lighter, slightly muted color palette that blends into the horizon. When you're doing this yourself in Blender, make sure you take advantage of the grease pencil layers. I have a dedicated layer for the foreground cliff, a separate layer for the midground, and a separate layer for the background sky. This layered approach is incredibly important because it means when we add effects like rain or lightning later on, we can sandwich those effects between the background mountains and the foreground cliff, instantly giving the 2D scene a 3D sense of depth. With our environment ready, let's shift focus to our main character. For this tutorial, I wanted to keep the design clean and stylized so that the animation process is easy to follow for beginners, while still carrying a lot of personality. Our main character is a minimalist, white-framed figure. I chose this design because it allows us to focus entirely on the silhouette and the core mechanics of movement without getting bogged down by complex clothing physics or intricate facial features. Let's break down the walk cycle. Bringing a character from a standstill to walking up to the edge of a cliff requires careful keyframing. If you look at the timeline, I started by establishing the contact positions, the moments where both feet are on the ground. From there, I filled in the passing positions, where one leg lifts up and passes the other. Because our character is walking on flat ground towards a steep drop-off, I had to ensure the weight distribution felt real. Notice how the torso slightly leans forward as the character moves. This subtle tilt gives the impression of purpose and momentum. As the character reaches the peak of the cliff, the walk cycle comes to a stop, and the character settles into an idle stance, looking out into the open space. If you're practicing this, focus on getting the footstepping timing consistent before you animate the arms or head. Yet challenging parts of this entire project, creating a smooth, believable 2D walk cycle for our character. If you are a beginner, animating a character moving across the screen can feel incredibly overwhelming. But the secret to mastering animation isn't trying to draw everything perfectly frame by frame from left to right. Instead, it is all about breaking the movement down into key poses and then filling in the gaps. In Blender, we use the grease pencil system, which allows us to draw directly onto a 2D plane inside a 3D environment. Before you draw a single line of your walk cycle, you want to make sure your workspace is set up correctly. Look at your timeline at the bottom of the screen. We are going to work with standard keyframes, and we're going to animate on 2s or on 1s, depending on how smooth you want the motion to be. For a stylized project like this, animating on 2s, meaning you change the drawing every 2 frames, gives it a classic, hand-drawn look while saving you a massive amount of time. Step 1. The contact pose. To start a walk cycle, we must establish the most important frame, known as the contact pose. Go to frame 1 on your timeline. The contact pose is the exact moment when both of the character's feet are touching the ground. One leg is extended forward, striking the ground with the heel, while the other leg is extended backward, lifting off the ground with the toe. Because our character is a stylized, clean silhouette, you need to pay close attention to the spacing of the limbs. If both legs look identical, the viewer won't be able to tell the left leg from the right leg. To fix this in Blender, I highly recommend using different layers or slightly different shading for the far leg, the leg in the background, so you don't get confused as the legs cross over each other. During the contact pose, the character's torso is at its neutral height, but the body is slightly leaning forward in the direction of the walk to show momentum. Step 2. The passing pose. Once your first contact pose is drawn, jump ahead on your timeline, let's say to frame 7 or 9. This is where we draw the passing pose. This is the exact middle point of the step. Here, the weight of the entire body shifts entirely onto one leg, which stands completely straight and upright to support the character. The other leg is bent and lifting off the ground, passing right by the standing leg. Because the standing leg is straight, the character's hips and head are pushed up to their highest point in the entire cycle. This vertical movement, the head bobbing up and down, is what makes an animation feel alive. If a character walks and their head stays perfectly level on a flat line, the animation will look robotic and fake. In Blender, you can turn on onion skinning, the little icon next to your layer settings, to see a faint ghost outline of your first contact pose. This helps you perfectly measure how high to lift the body in the passing pose. Step 3. The down and up poses, the breakdowns. Now that you have your contact pose and your passing pose, you need to draw the frames that connect them. These are called the breakdowns. The first breakdown is the down pose, which happens right after the contact pose. As the front foot takes the full weight of the body, the knee bends to absorb the impact. This causes the character's torso and head to drop to the absolute lowest point in the entire walk cycle. The second breakdown is the up pose, which happens right after the passing pose. As the character prepares to take the next step, the back leg pushes off the ground with the toes, propelling the body forward. This lifts the character's head and body slightly higher than the passing pose right before they fall into the next contact position. Step 4. Mirroring the step. At this point, you have completed exactly half of a walk cycle, one full step. Now you need to repeat the exact same process for the second step, but with the legs reversed. If on frame 1, the left leg was forward, then on your next contact pose, the right leg must be forward. Blender makes this incredibly easy. Instead of redrawing everything from scratch, you can use the grease pencil edit mode. You can select your strokes from the first contact pose, copy them, paste them further down the timeline, and use the mirroring or transform tools to swap the positions of the legs. This ensures your character maintains perfect proportions throughout the walk without their limbs accidentally changing size. Step 5. Refining and tuning the timing. Once all your keyframes, contact, down, passing, up, are placed on the timeline, hit play and look at the loop. If the movement feels too fast or jerky, you can switch your workspace to the dope sheet. In the dope sheet, you can see every single keyframe represented as a small diamond. If you want the character to walk slower, simply select the keyframes and slide them further apart to add more frames between the poses. And that officially wraps up episode 1 of this new series. Since this is just the very first episode, we spent today laying down the groundwork, looking at how to set up the workspace and getting a feel for the project layout. But don't worry, this is a multi-part series, and in the upcoming episodes, I'm going to skip the heavy setup and show you directly how to animate things from the absolute ground up. We will be diving straight into the core basics of motion, frame-by-frame drawing techniques, and how to make things move seamlessly right inside Blender. If you want to follow along with this journey and build your animation skills step by step, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you get notified the exact moment episode 2 drops. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for episode 1. Practice what we looked at today, keep creating, and I will see you right here in the next episode. Goodbye.